going, where is your gas meter? And we walked out together to the gas meter, and it had been closed and locked closed.
Wow.
And it turns out they had left a note on the front door that we never saw. And they came yesterday while we were at Shepherd's Farm, and it said, we have changed your meter, and we've locked your gas off. And call this number Monday to Friday during business hours, and we can get your gas going again.
Can't have nice things, Andrew. I'm very sorry.
Well, your mother called the emergency number today after talking to the other one that said, we're not open. And she explained to the poor lady, my father lives here, he's almost 92. We cannot go 2 days without gas. So sometime between now and 11 o'clock at night, they're going to have a crew out to get our gas on.
We're good. We're going. We've been doing this the entire time.
Yeah. So my sanctification has definitely been tested because of the amount of time that we have put into trying to get different things to work. So we were supposed to start 45 minutes ago. So, there you go.
Greetings.
Welcome. And that's the show. No,
Do we talk really fast?
I believe you can.
Call Mary Love. She can talk fast.
Well, welcome for our third guest, although the first guest episode is sort of lost in the ether of failed technology. And the second one, we've got a good chunk of it. And then this one features Mr. Terrence Edward Himebook I, who is strangely related to Terrence Edward Himebook II, but I'm still trying to get my older brother on the show. That might take a little more finagling, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, he point blank said today that was not going to happen, but that's okay.
Well, I might bribe him. We'll see. People do strange things. I might just sneak a recording device into a room with him, set up my phone in the corner.
Hopefully
just
he doesn't watch this.
No, he doesn't watch it. He doesn't have time to watch this. What are you talking about? He does other things.
That's true. He reads.
Welcome. There you go. So, first question. At what juncture are you going to restore the joy of humanity and actually grow your beard back? Because it would be pretty epic, right? You could go, look, hey, I had to trim mine recently, but if I can grow a pretty decent beard, yours would be pretty Civil War general epic.
I run hot. If I lived in Alaska, I could grow a beard.
Really? I've never been more tempted to hope that you live in Alaska. Because we need that. The world needs that. After the last 45 minutes, I need that. I need something positive. And you having a beard would be that thing. So,
I've had a beard before.
I remember. I've seen photos, and I remember when we were kids. We were in a canoe for one of them.
Mm-hmm. We were in Minneapolis.
That was Minneapolis?
Uh-huh.
Was that the park where Peter walked on the lily pad?
No, that was
I
Dallas.
should say attempted, because, okay.
And that was Terry.
Really? That was Peter.
I think it was Terry.
Okay. All right, we'll have to ask him.
That
We'll
was
get him on
a
the
state fairgrounds in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
And he went down.
Let's say lily pads are not for walking. But because the sidewalk went into this lake or pond, and then lily pads were kind of continuing the path. So I know, someone was not thinking, or they were very malicious, with a little camcorder. It's let's see who falls. All right, so I always love telling people when they ask me where I'm from, and I say I was born in Georgia. I was raised in Alabama and Georgia, but my father was born in Canada. My mother was born in California, and they met in Tennessee. So trying to convey to people, yes, I grew up in the South, but also we didn't say the word y'all. We weren't against it, but we didn't say it. So anyway, describe, I almost said describe your birth, but it'd be it was very dark.
I was pretty young.
My earliest memories. I was practically a newborn, you see. Anyway, but no, so I've heard your story. This is for them to have for posterity. So tell us the story of your birth and the birthing room, because that was the part that I remember being interesting.
Welcome to Canada. I was supposed to be born the first week of April. My birthday is May the 1st. So at about 3 weeks overdue, the doctors got excited. And at that point, they told my mother that it was likely I would not be alive. And there was a possibility she would not be alive. But we both survived. Praise the Lord. Had I had pink eyes, I would have been anemic because I was white with white hair. And but I had blue eyes, so they decided not to make me anemic. And I remember Canada so well. We moved when I was about 3 weeks old.
I know, it destroys the illusion, but it still sounds fun to say.
But, oh, goodness gracious, my little brother was born 2.5 years later. And my father was describing the room that I was born in to the doctor who delivered my younger brother in Wichita, Kansas. And the doctor said, what you're describing, it sounds just like a typical American surgical room of the 1890s.
That's why I wanted that story.
Whoa.
Now I get. So you were born exactly. Where were you born in Canada?
Newmarket, Ontario, Canada.
There you go. Now we have it
Ontario.
on the record. There's no denying it. All right. And then when did y'all move down to Wichita?
That was 3 weeks old. We moved to Oklahoma City.
Gotcha. Oh, really?
And Dad was looking for work. And we ended up in Wichita. I have no memories of Wichita. I do know that at one point, a tornado came through across the street and cleaned out the entire line of houses. But on our side of the street, it didn't even break the windows.
Wow. Well, it's all flatlands. So like.
Oh no, you're in Kansas.
Just roams.
Tornadoes are.
Yeah.
Growing up, at one point, we had 3 tornadoes at one time. But you
I
can
remember
see it.
in Huntsville, like as a kid, Mom getting mad at you because you were pulling your ladder out when we were in, like, there's a tornado, and you're trying to climb on the roof to see it. So,
In Huntsville, that's not wise. In Hutchinson, Kansas, you could see a tornado. There was one time with the 3. One was 6 miles, one was about 10 miles, and the other one was 20 miles. We couldn't actually see the 20-mile away one. We could see the other 2, but you have the distance. So when they come close, you get off the roof, take cover. And we had to do that once. We went down to the storm shelter on the farm. And it's a little old-fashioned. You had to open up the doors of this little hill in your front yard, and you shove everybody down, including the dog, and you pull the door behind you. And I kept telling my dad, can I get Pee-wee? Please. Pee-wee's my cow. And Dad's going, Pee-wee will be just fine. Well, she's fine. What am I doing down here? He didn't like that discussion.
now speaking of your cow,
My cow?
like, tell us about how this Himebook family farm in Wichita, Kansas came
This
to
one
be.
came into Hutchinson.
Oh, I apologize.
No, that's okay. Yeah, no, we lived in Wichita. We moved to Hutchinson, I think I was about 3.5 or 4. And so that's really where my memory begins.
Okay.
And we lived at one house, 409 Kansas Avenue. I still remember the address. Although when we lived in Hutchinson, when we went back and visited this last October, a year ago, my wife and I, it's the first time she'd ever been to Hutchinson.
Well,
I don't think she wants to go back. But
let's just say that the quality left when you did, you know.
when we found out, I could not find that house because in my memory, it's a red brick house. And in reality, it's a yellow brick house. And I'm, how much more of my memory is tainted?
Is it next to a road?
So I don't think you had a cow.
No, not there, not there. That was our first house, and then we bought the farm. And the farm, we lived there for 2.5 years.
I said, what possessed him to buy a farm?
That was his dream.
Oh,
Wow.
He had grown up. My grandpa Himebook had about 5 acres out in the country, and that's where that's high school. You know, he would go ice skating on the pond, and they even had a place. His job every night, he would feed the chickens behind the barn. Well, they had put a little bathroom in the barn, and they put a window, just a small little window, I can remember it, on top, above the toilet, and it was right at the height that Dad could take a .22 rifle, and he would feed the chickens out back, and they were open range, and then he would run around to the barn and get his rifle up and shoot the pheasants because they would come in to eat. And when Dad was in the Army, he got the marksmanship award because he could shoot. And I was all those years of shooting pheasants. Now, my favorite story from my dad's farm, he came home. He was a freshman in high school. And my grandpa handed him a shovel and said, all right, we're going to put a basement in. And we're starting now. And putting a basement in is not a small thing, especially when it's a father-son project with a pair of shovels and buckets. And what they did, Grandpa Himebook had cut through the pantry floor in the kitchen. And then they dug from there, and they dug down until they had lowered enough to have a basement. It took them 4 years. And eventually they got the basement in, and everything was concrete. And that's when they moved the attic. They had bedrooms. They had the attic upstairs, and they moved the attic down to the basement to put bedrooms upstairs. And that's when my dad discovered he had uncles. Whole other story.
Oh, but say,
Yeah, at the farm.
Wow.
At the farm. Each of those kids.
They weren't like in the attic though. Like it was just.
No. That's a different story.
What are you doing here?
Yeah, he didn't know he had uncles.
So it probably felt a strong kinship to like The Great Escape, you know, when they're
That's
taking
right,
the
all
tunnels.
those tunnels,
Just
yes.
like, oh yes, I remember the basement. So,
Oh, when we had the farm, we decided to dig a fort. And we were so proud of ourselves. It was my two brothers and I. And we had dug it down to where it was at least 5 or 6 feet deep before my father discovered it. And we had already started the tunnel. We were going to go under the ground and have an underground fort.
this is what people did before video games, Andrew.
And my poor father, when he saw it, he thanked us. And he turned it into the dump because we didn't get trash service at the farm. We were all terribly disappointed. But the farm was a ball. Each of us kids got to select any animal, and Dad would buy it for you. Every child's dream. And my oldest sister, Noelle, she's like, I like cats. I want cats. And my dad went, I've got good news for you. There's about 60 of them. They live in the big barn. The owls live in the little barn. They're all yours.
Go save the one you want before the owl gets it.
And then my sister Becky, she's like, any animal. I'll have a horse. Dad buys her a horse. And my older brother's not stupid. He goes, you're giving out horses. I'll take a horse. And he got a horse. Now, I gotta be different. Yeah, and you know what I'm talking about.
This is the heading. I gotta be different.
I gotta be different.
Terry Himebook.
So I'm going, I'll take a cow. It turns out it was the best decision I ever made. Well, no, I got married. But before that,
Wow.
Turns out. We'll cut. No, we won't. But it's funny.
yeah. But as it turned out, when we sold the farm, the horses sold for about what we paid for them. The cats stayed put. My little brother's ducks were all killed. He wanted ducks. And we all looked at him. He was 4. And we're going, why ducks? We're in Kansas. Now, we're right by the Arkansas River. I know everywhere else is the Arkansas River. But we're a dike over from the Arkansas River. But still, there's no water. Why ducks? And he goes, I'm going to milk them.
Now, just to assure everybody, he's doing okay. What does he do for a living now?
Oh, no, he's retired.
What? Who? Wait, Uncle John?
Uncle John?
Yeah, but he has his own business.
What did he do?
Oh, my goodness, he did everything. He owned...
He didn't.
No.
He didn't milk ducks. I'll tell you
No,
that.
no.
He did not milk any ducks. That's
No.
what I was getting at.
He never did milk ducks. No, John is a marvel. He walked out of college and got a job as a vice president of a telecommunications company. And, And then he had an office in Atlanta. At the same time, he had an office in Chattanooga. And then he was part of a company that he did startup companies. And now he's,
So I'm curious then. So like your dad got it in his head, I'm just going to give my kids whatever farm animal they want. Like, where did you get the idea? Because when we turned 6, was it 6? We turned 6 and you would tell us, okay, you're going to be taking piano and you're going to, you're going to be singing, but you're 6, so you get to pick another instrument. Right?
Oh, no, it wasn't that bad. The rule at our house when you were growing up, but I'm going to go back to my cow first.
Okay, yeah, sure. Tell us about Pee-wee.
When Pee-wee the cow, when we sold our farm, we had bought Pee-wee for $50, just a little heifer.
Oh.
When we sold the farm, it was about $700 or $800 worth of cow. And my father went, well, you fed her, but I paid for the feed. I'll take the $50 I invested and we'll split the rest. And I was a fourth grader, and I had like $400 in my savings account all of a sudden. And that ended up helping to finance the first time we bought a house.
Wow.
So that's been there all that time. So yeah, it was a smart move.
Your cow paid for a house.
Well,
Wow.
no, but it helped with the down payment.
Wow.
No, what the deal we had with our kids growing up, you had to take piano. And I think we started, when I was growing up, it was the summer before second grade, but I think Mom had you guys starting when you were like 4 or 5. And you had to take piano until you were 16. And at that point, at 16, you were taking from Grandma Champness. And if you decided to say, no, you can't, but you have to tell her. And because at that point, you know what you want out of life. So I'm a band director.
Yeah,
There's no
16.
money. There's no money in band directing. It's just way too much
Second.
fun. Yeah, but you get all the fun in life. And so my goal
It's very
was,
true.
my kids were going to know how to play their instrument. And so if you asked to play, Peter started at 4, Mary Love started at 6. You didn't actually start till 4th grade. Because in 4th grade, I was like, okay, now it's time.
All this time I thought that was like, we got to a certain age and you were like, hey, you should do this. I have to
Fourth
amend
grade.
my stories.
And 4th grade was, if you haven't picked anything by then, what do you want to play?
Yeah.
And that was but see, Peter, he started before kindergarten. He was home at. And then Terry actually started at 2.5. I was taking trombone lessons from the principal trombone player of the Atlanta Symphony. And so when I get home from work at night, we'd have supper, I would play with Terry for 30 minutes, and then I go lock myself up in the bedroom and practice for an hour every night. You do that when you're paying $75 for a 45-minute lesson. And so that's all he ever saw of me when I'm home. I get to play with Dad for 30 minutes, and then he's in that room with a trombone, so he wanted one.
Yeah.
And to his credit, by the time he was 6, he was in the Yamaha book, and he was about 2/3 of the way through. He knew all the notes, all the rhythms. He just couldn't reach 6th. And so anything in 6th, that was a rest. But when he, I guess, no. He stopped playing at the age of 4. So he started at 2.5, he stopped at 4. And I still marvel because he could read music. And then when he turned 6, he wanted to start the trumpet. And that's when he went to the trumpet. Defected. But
Exactly.
yes.
But he
Yep.
has the personality for it, so it's fine. Hey, I just realized we have a table of 3 trombone players and 3 people who make a living at music.
Yep.
Oh, the stories we could tell.
Yeah.
First about those trumpet players, and then... Yeah,
Yes.
I'm just drinking water, that's all.
That's not okay.
It's bubbly water, yeah. It's water with a bow tie.
This is not sponsored. No calories, no sweeteners. All smiles. Sorry, I had to. It was perfect.
We'll take sponsors. Hey, if that gets us a more reliable camera and setup, I say let's do it.
Oh, that's fine.
See, I love it. Yeah, you're leaning into the thing, so it actually sounds really professional.
Yeah, I was gonna say that to Dad. I was gonna say lean in a little bit more, but I didn't want to interrupt you in the middle of your story, especially when we're talking about Pee-wee. How you say it?
Oh, Pee-wee the cow.
Pee-wee
Yes.
the cow. That is going on my board.
Now I will tell you my other fun story.
The one other story he
I
knows.
have one other fun story from our farm days. We had a blizzard. Now, in the 14 years that I lived in Kansas, we had 2 blizzards. And a Kansas blizzard is unreal because the wind picks the snow up and just shoves it in your face. The last blizzard that we had, it was December of 78, over into January of 79. And we had farmers die because one of them, he was foolish. He didn't have a rope connected to his barn. And when he went to feed the animals, he got lost. And the other one was careless. He had a rope, and he had it tied at both ends. But when he got out of his house, for some reason, it came off of the doorknob. It wasn't tight enough. So when he fed the animals, he couldn't see the house. And they found him still holding that rope, but he was dead. It's just blinding. But on the farm...
Sleep well.
On the farm, what that meant was you got all the snow blowing from one side. And so our 2-story farmhouse, you could run in the back door with your sled, run up the stairs, and go sledding out the 2nd-story window. that was fun. And you could just walk right in the back door because the wind, it's only on one side of the house. And we did tunnels underneath the snow.
Back to the tunnels.
It was a ball. We could walk over fences.
Lots of tunneling in my family history.
We could walk over these fences on the snowbanks. We had more fun. It was a whole week of snow. And I was wearing a turtleneck. I run hot. That beard thing, yes. I was wearing a turtleneck, and so I was getting a heat rash. So the first day of school, I showed up at school, Reno, grade school. Oh my goodness. Oh, it was Miss Mandel. Poor Miss Mandel. She was hired and fired in 1 year. She was a scream, literally. But Miss Mandel, she looked at my neck all full of these little red dots, and she goes, "Oh no, chickenpox."
Oh, great.
And she sent me to the nurse. And the nurse took one look at me and she goes, "Oh no, chickenpox." And she called my mother. And my mother went, "It's a heat rash." And the nurse went, "We have a blizzard. No one gets a heat rash in a blizzard. Take him home and don't bring him back until those dots are gone." I got a 4-day vacation. I didn't even have to pretend to be sick. My mother knew I wasn't sick. If I'd have been 2 years older, I'd have been smart enough to think, "Oh, put that turtleneck back on."
Yeah.
But
Anytime you want to get out of school, just put on the turtleneck. Oh no, I got chicken pox again.
So
Fourth time.
Before you started that story and you said 14, I'm used to when you tell a story, I thought you were gonna say, "Well, back in the 14th century." I was like,
Yes,
"Oh,
that's right.
all right, we're going back. We're
way
going
back.
back to Kansas. All right, here we go." That's funny though. See, and like I'm a Memphian. I was born and raised in Memphis. A 2-story house covered in snow.
right.
Shut us all down. We're done. Like,
All the pipes are going to burst.
Yes.
yeah, pipes are gonna burst. MLGW is gonna crumble and collapse. We're finished. Memphis is gone.
I lived 2 years in Michigan, Gratiot County, Michigan, St. Louis. And the rule for schools is you got to have 24 inches of snow in 24 hours. Well, you're in school.
Yeah.
Not the case here. Although
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, like when it would snow in Alabama and then again in Georgia, like getting in the car with either Terry driving or me driving, you would have us drive little patches on the road because you wanted us to experience driving on this, because you didn't want us to not know how to drive on snow. And living in Memphis, I gotta say that tends to be my biggest frustration. Is like when it does snow, I'm going, okay, I know what to do. Like I'm not perfect, but I know what to do. But I'm mostly terrified about all these other crazy people that are out there on the streets that think I'm just going to slam on my brakes for everything. So,
Not to mention, everyone's making milk sandwiches, so you don't have any bread or milk.
Oh, okay.
That's what everyone goes after is bread and milk.
Wow.
Even on the news.
You are a Memphian. Wow.
On the news, they're like, "Don't forget to stock up on your milk and bread." Why? What are you making?
And toilet paper. Don't forget that. That was fun. Okay. How are we doing on time? Yeah, we're good for another 10 minutes. We'll have to keep it like a shorter episode, but we're definitely having you back.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we're just scraping the surface. And I knew this would happen. Like, I know that when it comes to, like, when I had Grandpa on, I had, like, notes, And I just figured we'd just have you on and point you in a direction and set you free. So, all right. So, going into school, your family was the Kansas musical family of
We were the Kansas
year?
musical family of the year.
Yeah.
And I want to say it was 74. Whatever it was the year that Nixon resigned.
Wow.
Now, I say that because we'd been on television. I didn't know until 2 years ago. My mother was explaining that we were actually runners-up for the National Family Musical Family of the Year. We lost out to a family in Delaware or New Hampshire. But we were actually in the rankings, so right up there.
Wow.
Long ago.
Now,
But
how do you even enter? Do they
have
even
no idea.
have this
I have no
anymore? I feel like that's not even a thing in our culture, sadly. But who sits there and goes, you know what our competition should be? Most musical family.
Yeah, and they had that every year. But
How did
the
your
reason
parents even know about it? Like, know to sign you up for it?
I have no idea. But I remember it vividly because it was a Monday night, and we had been selected to be the closing act for the picnics at Cow Creek. Hutchinson, Kansas was built around Cow Creek. It never ran dry. Of course, you could hop over it, but that way the cattlemen knew there would be water for their cows. And they had a gazebo there, and they would have the Hutchinson Municipal Band every Monday night. They would do concerts. And then they would have other groups come and do
every Monday night
during the summertime.
Oh,
And it was a paid gig. I mean, it was highfalutin. And we were the closing act. And right before we were to walk up on stage to finish, they stopped us. We were right there by the stairs. We're going to go up. We're going to sing. I think at that point we were doing Fiddler on the Roof. And they stopped us. And then the announcer walked up and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we just heard over the radio that President Richard Nixon has resigned from office just a few moments ago. We thought you'd want to know. And now for our last act, let me introduce him." And my poor father, he was like trying to, how do you,
If I were a Nixon, all day long. Anyway.
Yes. So it was that year.
Okay, so let's step back even further. Like, what your dad, like, first of all, like, what was his occupation again, real quick?
Well,
okay.
My poor
I was
father.
as clear as I could be.
My poor father was the first time book. This is family tradition. It's the first time book that never made his living as a musician
Okay.
since the 1840s.
Right.
When the original Himebook came over with the German National Opera and settled for the New York Metropolitan Opera. Now, I have to qualify that. My grandfather's career was with Ford Motor Company. But before that career, he and his two brothers that didn't get along, which is why my dad didn't know he had uncles, were a band in the speakeasies of Detroit. And my grandfather was the lead singer and the drummer and the dance man. This was all before my dad was born. So my dad's dream was to be a musician. And in high school, he was a member of the all-school quartet. They were in Detroit. His graduating class was like 1,100 people. And so the quartet, these were good. They were on television. They were on radio. He was the baritone.
Yeah. Okay. So that's my question too, because even after being married, like I've seen pictures of him at all sorts of musical events.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
How did he have time for all this?
In Hutchinson, until we bought the farm, he was a member of the Rebel Airs, which was an adult community choir, and they did a lot of musicals.
What was like his work schedule? Like, how did he?
And his work schedule was nutty.
I was gonna say. So if he wasn't there, I mean, is that wow? Mm-hmm. But obviously, he still felt the need to impress upon his kids a love and appreciation for music.
Oh, we sang.
So.
We were not always on the stage. We were singing in churches. We were singing at the Salvation Army repeatedly. We were singing for broadcasts in the mornings for different ministers on television and on radio. We sang. For a period of time, we were doing about 3 gigs a week.
Wow.
And that was normal. And then when my older brother's voice started changing and my sisters were in high school, and the whole thing went completely overnight. But no,
Wow.
Dad, his dream was to be a singer. And he had the voice for it.
Yeah.
But when he graduated, he and the lead singer from the quartet decided, we're going to be the next Hale and Wilder. We're going to go and we're going to turn the world upside down by singing together. And his friend went, but that means we have to go to college. And Dad went, well, yeah, we got to get to college and study voice. And his friend went, I don't have money for that. So I'm going to go into the Army and use the GI Bill to go to college. And my dad went, well, shoot, I'll go with you. And if we sign up together, maybe we'll be able to stay together. And so they both signed on the dotted line. I think it was a 4-year commitment. And his buddy didn't pass the physical. And so Dad, he sang in the Army choir, and then he directed the chapel choir down near New Orleans when he was stationed there. And I've got an article, I forget the year, but he was the director for their Christmas program.
Oh wow.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
So no, his career was not music, but he sang. I think Dad, when he turned 84 or 85, he said that's the last solo.
Wow. Wow. Well, it was interesting because Grandma was showing me like programs and stuff and photos of him, and I was just like,
I've got a scrapbook.
How does he have the time for that? It was impressive. I was given what I know of his work schedule, and then also that he took the time to to invest musically in his family. So like that definitely kind of rubbed off on you. Did that rub off? It didn't rub off on all your siblings.
No, it did.
Like,
it did. They didn't. I mean, not all of us make our living at music.
Yeah.
But again, my dad was not allowed to take piano because his uncle was an alcoholic and he was a piano player. So that was why. And when he went to college,
You know those pianists.
I'm telling you, man.
for the Grandpa Himebook, that was so
Somebody married one.
when he went to college, if you can't find your way around a piano, you can't major in music. And so he ended up getting a certificate for accounting. He didn't have a degree. He did go back when I was in junior high and finish his associate's degree in music with a GI Bill. So he was very musically literate, but he was handicapped. My mother grew up in a single family home and without a father.
Wow.
And so they couldn't afford piano.
Yeah.
And she loved it.
Well, it's interesting too because like she's told me before that she felt like, and I'm hoping to like even if just virtually have her on at some point.
Yeah.
But she was talking about how she wanted to be a teacher.
Oh yes, that was her dream.
And it sounds like I told her, I was like, well, it sounds like you did it, just not where you thought you'd do it. Because all of her kids like talking about like giving you reading and the amount of assignments and stuff, and I was like, wow, that's legit a second school you had to go to.
She was harder than any teacher I ever had. And it was delightful because when they met at Sterling College, and my mother was right out of high school, she was 18, my dad was 25. And he had just turned 25 that summer. And he was looking for a wife. And he could remember her when she came bouncing across, the lobby. And he had his eyes on her already.
Bless her beautiful heart.
Dad was big man on campus at Sterling College. Literally and really. Literally because he was about 5'8" and he weighed 295 pounds. And he could move. He played semi-pro hockey.
And he passed the physical in the Army.
They were worried about him. But
just like, here comes a tank.
And so on the Sterling College football team, he played offensive and defensive line. Wow. They had two numbers. In fact, they had another number they would tape over if it was, third and short. They put him in as a fullback because when he got his steam up, you don't want to get in front of him. I've seen him. A horse threw my sister Becky and broke her arm. And so Dad, the rule is if the horse bucks you off, you get back on. You can't. So he did. And you could see this poor little pony, Becky's horse, Wendy. the poor little pony just sort of sagged in the middle. And she was a little piano.
I'm sorry, what have I done?
And she just sort of wobbles for a minute. And then we're all standing there watching this.
Dad's going to break the horse.
He goes, flip. And my father flew, but he still had his hands on the reins.
Oh, no.
And you could see the grooves as he pulled the horse back to him. He was a big guy. But the other thing, he was a singer. 6 years in the Army choir. Yeah, he could sing. And he would sit underneath my mother's dorm window with his ukulele and serenade her. Only he didn't know this. She was never there. She couldn't get anywhere near that room because all the girls were in her room because he was a good singer. And so, yes, they had one date, I believe it was in November, and my dad bought a ring. Okay. And then they got married in January.
When you know.
Yep, when you know.
I have a copy of one of his ukulele pieces on my shelf. Yeah.
Would it be the alphabet song?
It is the
alphabet song, yep.
That was fun.
Oh, yeah.
He and Spike Jones would have got along really well.
Yeah. I don't remember him doing as many fart jokes, but
No. Dad was never crude. Never.
Well, this has been fun. We definitely need to have you back because I feel like we just scraped the surface. We need to talk about your high school years. We need to talk because you got up to all sorts of shenanigans. And then I know, band kid, trombone player, who knew? And then you got beat up, you had all the stories about the bullies. Yeah, and then we got to talk about you going to college and meeting Mom and calling her Rue and kissing her on the stairs and then leaving her standing there all by herself. And it's all sorts of...
I remember that.
I could probably talk to Mom about that one too, just to get her opinion on it. And then we got to talk about just, I don't know, like my childhood, because this is therapy for me. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, thanks for coming on. And we have to talk about like our philosophies of music and worship. Like I want to like delve into some serious stuff.
Before we get serious,
yeah,
as we're closing, do you remember the little parakeet bird that attacked Purple?
I do, yeah.
Uh-huh. And your mother...
Context.
Okay, so Rita Lane?
We were on Rita Lane.
In Huntsville, Alabama, and we had a backyard, and
I'm working in the garden.
there was a parakeet that just made its home in the backyard.
No, it flew and landed on my shoulder.
For whatever reason, it hated the sight of purple, and then Mom came walking out in a purple outfit.
You were first.
Oh.
I just remember Mom. I don't remember me.
No. Man,
I
that
don't
bird...
write my bad memories in stone.
It was a little colorful bird, and it just landed on my shoulder, and it was happy, and I'd be working. And when I leaned over, it would just climb up on my back. And if I stood back up, it would climb up on my shoulder, and it was happy up there. No idea where it came from. It showed up it was a Saturday, and you walked out the door, and you had a big purple stripe on your shirt.
It was very stylish.
For some reason, that bird went purple, and it was attacked.
It's all red, but
and
purple.
You were screaming and running across the yard.
I don't blame you.
And I'm screaming and running across the yard.
I had an older brother who lit me on fire once, so that's its own thing.
And we finally got you safely in the house.
Thank you.
And the bird was happy, perched on my shoulder. I wasn't wearing purple. And you were explaining this to your mother, but she came out to see for herself, and she was wearing a purple shirt, and that bird just went right for her. And oh my goodness, it was hysterical.
That's funny.
And then the bird disappeared when we went in for supper, and that we never saw it again. But yes, that was one of those random stories.
The parakeet that destroys purple.
Well, I remember as a kid, and then we'll finish it up. I remember as a kid that you had a deal where we could work for $1 an hour in the garden, or you'd buy us a Hot Wheels car. We were learning about sales tax, and we did the math. Terry and I figured that with tax, like if we got the Hot Wheels car instead of the $1, it was technically $1.08. And I remember the two of us realizing this and like sort of like wringing our hands, old school villain style, like, oh, we are ripping this guy off. A full 8 cents. We have bins of Hot Wheels cars. Just like $1 an hour. I'm just like, that's genius. Genius.
Now, let me qualify that.
Okay.
In the summertime, you and the whole family, we worked for 30 minutes every day, Monday through Friday. It was like 7 to 7:30. We'd be in the garden, and then we'd go in for breakfast. That was our summer schedule. And then on Saturdays, you had to work for 1 hour. And then anything over that, it was 25 cents for a 15-minute period.
I feel like
you work an hour, you get a Hot Wheels car.
By the end of this journey, you're going to have so much more of an understanding of the quirks of our
That's
family.
fine. Hey, I'm married in, so it's cool.
Not many of my children have gardens.
Mary Love wants
I
one.
would love one once I have kids that can contribute. I'm not in a place right now where
Me too.
I'm like, yeah. Okay, touche. And on that note, we're going to wrap it up for today, but we're definitely going to do this again because it was far too short a time. Thank you very much, sir. Always a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Yeah. All right. Till next time.